China and Russia have countered the United States' bid to impose new stringent sanctions against North Korea. Now, both the countries have vetoed a United Nations resolution backed by the United States that was aimed at reining in North Korea for its spate of intercontinental ballistic missile launches. This comes after Pyongyang test-fired 3 ballistic missiles off its eastern coast earlier in the week, including one thought to be its largest intercontinental ballistic missile. The test was conducted just hours after the American President Joe Biden concluded his Asia trip. The missiles were fired from the Sunan area of North Korean capital and had fallen outside of Japan's exclusive economic zone. Now, Russia and China are 2 of the 5 veto-wielding permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. Their decision marks the first serious division amongst the permanent members of the United Nations' most powerful body since it started punishing Pyongyang in 2006. China and Russia were the only 2 countries out of the 15-member Security Council to stall the US's bid to counter North Korea's intensifying weapons tests. Now, the US ambassador to the United Nations, Thomas Greenfield, has called these veto votes a hindrance for Council in fulfilling its responsibility.
For the first time in 15 years, a UN Security Council member has used a veto to stop the Council from fulfilling its responsibility to hold the DPRK accountable for its unlawful proliferation and test. The vetoes today are dangerous. Those members have taken a stance that not only undermines the Security Council's previous action to which they have committed, but also undermines our collective security.
Now, these US-backed sanctions proposed banning tobacco exports to North Korea. The resolution further aimed at reducing the amount of oil that North Korea could legally import each year from 4 million barrels to just about 3 million barrels, and similarly cut the level of refined petroleum imports as well. The sanctions, if imposed, would also have blacklisted the Lazarus hacking group, which the United States has said is tied to North Korea. Russia opposed the US draft resolution on more sanctions on North Korea by calling it a path towards a dead end, while China blamed the US for its failed policies. Now, both the nations have been pushing for easing of sanctions on humanitarian grounds, and also to entice Pyongyang to resume talks that have been stalled since 2019. After 3 failed summits between Kim Jong-un and the former President Donald Trump, Moscow and Beijing have sought a non-binding statement rather than a fresh resolution with teeth against Pyongyang.
Наши призывы преобразовать его в формат заявления председателя Совета Безопасности так и не были услышаны. В принципиальном плане мы неоднократно говорили о том, что введение новых санкций против КНДР – это тупиковый путь. Подчеркивали ошибочность, неэффективность и бесчеловечность усиления санкционного давления на Пхеньян. С 2006 года в отношении Пхеньяна было принято много рестриктивных резолюций. Однако, как показала история, санкционная парадигма так и не смогла гарантировать безопасность в регионе или урегулировать вопросы ракетно-ядерного нераспространения.
半岛局势发展到当前这一步，主要是美国自身政策反复，未能坚持以往对话成果造成的。这一点不容否认。
Now, North Korea faced sanctions imposed by the Security Council in 2006 after its first nuclear test explosion. The United Nations body also tightened them over the years to rein in the country's nuclear and ballistic missile programs and also cut off the funding that North Korea had for these programs. The country had suspended its intercontinental ballistic missile tests for almost about 5 years, but in the last 5 months, since the beginning of this year, Pyongyang has intensified its weapons testing program, taking its annual tally of tests to a total of 23 so far. The United Nations General Assembly will now discuss North Korea in the next 2 weeks under a new rule that requires the 193-member body to meet every time a veto is cast by one of the 5 permanent members.
오늘 우리가 국방 발전 이렇게 놓은 발전을 튼튼한 발판으로.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.